Hey, Sam fans! I wanted to start this episode by shouting out our two certified Sam stands from Patreon, Killabee and Temple Woods. Thanks for subscribing, you guys. And if any of you other listeners would like to support us on Patreon, we have 5 subscription tiers to choose from with tons of awesome extras for you, including early access to weekly episodes, live blogging with other Sam fans and the hosts, 2 extra Patreon podcast episodes per month, and much, much more. Check it out and enjoy this episode of A Sam Girl Retrospective. Yeah, I got mine ready.
Mildly important.
Just like wing it.
I mean, I got through college like it.
We probably know more about Supernatural than what we learned in college anyways.
Oh my God. I hate how true that is.
God, I'm gonna have to mute my mic so often to blow my nose. I have like a pile of Kleenex. Please. I'm sure that was beautiful to witness.
It was gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Okay.
I have some very unflattering spooky lighting on me at the moment, but whatever.
I like
It's spooky season.
It's spooky season. You have like
Okay, you can get me in the dark.
The right like color scheme for the fall. Like it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't have the overhead light on because I'll go insane.
That's fair. I'm right next to our window, so like I have a natural light.
Have like a ring light right here.
Can tell because you look like a model.
I should set mine up. I do have one. I'll do that for next time.
Yeah, next time. I have
for this audio medium.
Right. I mean, we need to feel good about it. I have a ring light over there that I could set up, but it's the middle of the day here, so
this is like this and a desk lamp are my usual sources of light. I usually have the big light off.
There you go. Turn my screen brightness up. Now you can. Now I'm getting some reflection off that.
There you go.
Now I'm
a
ghost.
Smart idea. Oh, I don't need any more light. Okay, I'm recording, so I know that we're not going to have another issue like we did the last time.
Woo!
This is episode 4, you guys, our 4th episode of season 2.
Woo!
And this time we're talking about one like iconic episode. Episode 7, The Usual Suspects.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Okay, let's just get into it. I'm going to summarize it really fast. Which, by the way, like Linda Blair being on the show.
Oh my God.
Like I forgot that was her. Like this is why it's good to have my amnesia because I get to celebrate things.
Her and Jared have such good chemistry in the episode. Like,
so
I'm sure
good.
we'll talk about it, but like, yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
good.
I love it.
So she's fabulous, and I love that they had her on because that means like they couldn't kill her off. So she's a female guest star that like makes it to the end, and she's a wonderfully written star. So Sam and Dean, I guess, go to investigate the murder of a lawyer, and then I think his wife also dies, but it's framed in a narrative where Sam is being interrogated by Detective Ballard, who is Linda Blair from The Exorcist, and he is basically narrating the story, and so he gives his story to the police, and it'll flash back to what actually was happening, and so he's not lying really about what is they're doing, but he's lying about how they're and why, because it's supernatural, and so he's like, well, I can't tell them like we're investigating ghosts. It's very well done. It's fabulously written. It is beautifully like directed. It's very cinematic, and the acting is just great. Like Jared just nails it. Linda Blair is really compelling, and so eventually, because they have Dean arrested, and they're basically saying, we walked in on you on this murder, like you're going down for this, and you were accused of all this stuff across the country because of all the other shenanigans that Dean got in as the skinwalker or whatever. And so by the end of the episode, they discover actually, before Dean is taken and like actually dispatched by one of the other detectives who I guess Linda Blair's character was dating. I always thought that was like the only part of the episode that was kind of weird. But the other detective, they've realized he's the actual murderer and that the ghost wasn't the violence, that she was actually the warning of violence. And so they're able to stop him. And at the end, Linda Blair's character, Detective Ballard, like shoots him because he is essentially he was gonna like off Dean and say, oh, all of his crimes, I guess, that were technically the detective's crimes, we'll never be able to like take him to court or whatever. And so he dies. She lets the boys go. It's very cute because she's like, get on out of here, you rascals. And they're like, thanks, detective. And it's just such a good episode.
You
so
rascals.
they really were like I feel like Sam was such a rascal in this one. Like at one point he leaves behind the name on a card like from The Great Escape, and it's when he like escaped the room, and he's just like very on the nose, like kind of picking on the detectives, doing little silly snarky pranks like that to kind of outsmart them. What do you guys want to start with? There's so much to discuss.
First of all,
oh no, go out.
it's such a small thing, so I want to go first. This is supposed to take place in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes, I'm so glad we have you for this one.
Yes, that's what I was thinking when we were watching it.
There's no element of Baltimore, Maryland in this episode.
Elle is in Baltimore. She would know. I visited her house there, I guess a house ago, right? You have the new house now, but I have witnessed her house in Baltimore, and she would know if that was Baltimore or not.
Yeah. I mean, Baltimore does have some places where it's just kind of brick buildings. But there's nothing Baltimore about this episode. So
yeah, I feel the thing that's cool about Baltimore is it's like there's a bay, like there's places to go that are uniquely like here.
We're on the water. We have some things that people come to
bay
sightsee.
Crabs and...
like, so we've got stuff.
Yeah.
And none of it's
I feel
here.
like Supernatural is always best like off just going for like generically rural Americana, because like there's a little bit more of Canada that you can kind of convince. But if you go for a specific like city, you're just putting yourself into especially somewhere that's got like definitive character.
Yeah, something very recognizable. You're so right. Oh my gosh.
Why did they choose to set it in Baltimore then? I don't understand.
Was any part of the story even necessary to be in Baltimore?
No.
Like, it didn't.
Is it a Linda Blair thing?
She really likes Baltimore?
I don't know if she has a connection to Baltimore.
I don't know.
I do not know why this is a Baltimore set in, it could be literally anywhere.
Well, it's the same reason they set something in Richardson, Texas, of all places, where like no one even knows where that is, and it didn't look anything like it. It could have been set in Kansas for all it mattered. That it was
they could have just made up a place. And plus, Baltimore is way on a coast. Maybe they wanted it to be really far away from like the last place that St. Louis.
Yeah, which maybe is on the way. Yeah, across.
I feel like the early seasons are quite good at giving you a sense of like distance traveled, like the fact that they are literally like traveling the whole country. So you might be right. Maybe that was part of the intention of it.
And they wanted to be like, this is America, and we go to different American places that are recognizably like important to America, not like Richardson, Texas, but like Baltimore and St. Louis.
Yeah, except they didn't show the harbor or the port, or
because they weren't really there. They
weren't really there. Anyway, I just had to bring that up as
I'm glad you did, because originally Elle was not scheduled to be on this one. We had some schedule conflicts. Actually, Christy and Jess were supposed to be on here. I have a totally different cast for this episode than we originally planned, because schedules are just crazy. And Jess did get to have her sweet little baby, and so she's mothering right now, first week of being mommy. And Christy's just had a crazy week at work, and so it just worked out that the Baltimore native is on the Baltimore episode. Thank goodness, because we kind of were kind of like, dang, that we needed Elle on that. So now she gets
a Baltimore correspondent.
yes,
Yeah,
he's
I'm
out
here to
there
tell
on
you,
the bay right now, letting us know.
there's no Baltimore in this episode. That's my that's my input. It literally, it could be, but there's nothing identifiable.
I mean, there's not even any Poe like memorabilia anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
That
there's
would have
so
been
much
easy
that
for
we've
them to
got.
fake too.
Yeah, that would have been an easy thing. Or like you're in Baltimore, Maryland, go to the Poe House. Like mock up
Yeah.
something that you call the Poe House. We
He
have a
could
Poe
have
House.
like that like Sam could have said that or something,
Yeah,
like it would have been something cute and like just like just throw a throwaway line.
yeah.
Oh
There's
well. A missed
oh well.
opportunity. All right, Vic, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say on a very shallow note, and I know that this is sort of cutting into our rating system at the end, but good lord, Sam is so hot in this episode.
Yes, he's gorgeous, and I love that checkered
he looks
shirt.
good. He's
Oh my God,
so,
yes.
like he doesn't just look good. He's hot. He's just
Mhm.
I love him.
There's something about the way that his hair is pushed back to the sides,
It's the little
but
part and the
some of
flippies.
it will still, yeah, some of it still like stubbornly needs to fleck across his forehead, and that's very beautiful to me. Like I love that. And so
It's aesthetic. Yeah,
it's
for sure.
very very good. And I love that checkered. That's one of the first pieces that I wrote was Sam has a great checkered pearl snap on,
So
and we love
it's
that.
it's actually the exact same one that he wore in Dead Man's Blood, which we also commented on, and interestingly is also a Catherine Humphreys episode. That was her first one that she co-wrote. Then this is Catherine Humphreys. She also wrote Born Under a Bad Sign, Metamorphosis, and Sex and Violence.
Oh, we love all those.
Some pretty pivotal episodes.
Maybe she put a note specific in there, like must have this pearl snap.
Yeah. Will not write this episode unless this shirt is in play.
But yeah, she didn't write anything past season 4, but like she wrote some pretty pivotal episodes in the first few seasons. Yeah, and we should note that this is a lady writers double feature, which I think is a rare and exciting thing on a Supernatural episode, like back to back women writers. Because next episode's Sarah. So.
We never get that. I love Sarah so much. Okay, well we'll get to that. No, okay. So I definitely wrote this episode rules. The cold open is cinematic, like so cinematic.
Oh, good.
And then I just really love like poker face Sam. I love like the snarky like, oh, we saw the second largest ball twine in the continental US, and then like just like,
well, and that part too. Like I wrote it down. He's so fucking cute right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but
here's the way that right? Like
he's the way that Jared is able to do this sort of like he's prepared to snark at her because that is how he's going to deal with the situation. And then she brings up Jess, and he's like the way that he's able to just suddenly be hit by that. And it's sort of understated, but very apparent.
Mm-hmm.
And his face is so pretty during it. And then he just like turns that into fuel for his next bit of snark about the second largest ball of twine. Like, he, like, from the acting perspective, he like nailed that.
There are
Jared
so
gets
many
sideswiped by grief, or Sam, sorry, gets sideswiped by grief and then has to turn it into fuel. Sorry.
Yeah, he does a great job.
I'm confusing the character and actor.
Yeah, there's loads of little touches in this episode that I really love. Yeah, I literally just wrote down about this whole scene. Like, I just put my beautiful little con artist with a little heart next to it.
Yeah, it's like I love my son. Look at him go. Look at him.
Look at
him. He's so good at it. That's my boy. Like
I wrote
he's so competent. Like
the confidence, yes, competent, and the confidence with which he deals with Detective Linda Blair. That's how I've referred to her through my notes.
Yeah. I really love that the entire episode. I think why we as Sam fans probably really love this is it is narrated by Sam, but also like Sam is so competent, and he like the entire episode rests on and hinges on Sam knowing what he's doing and how he's going to do it, and Dean trusting that Sam will do it. Like there's not a moment where Dean's like, ugh, I hope Sam is doing this, or I hope Sam is doing that. Like Dean knows Sam's got this. He's on the other side of this, and I just need to get him this gum wrapper with a note written on it or whatever.
Dare I say, I think this is probably one of the most Sam-centric episodes.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Show.
I think you're right.
You might be right.
I think it is. Like, and not just in terms of screen time, as you said, it's not. There is a lot of Sam on the screen, but it is also like what they're doing with him, and and it's fun. It's a fun episode.
Yes,
like which is a rare thing, to be honest, in Supernatural.
It's so rare that we get something this meaty for Sam that isn't also very traumatic. And so it's just fun to kind of watch.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
And get to enjoy that it is a full-on case.
Yeah.
It is just a case episode. Almost said case fic. It's not a fic, it's the real show. It's a full-on episode that's a case that is just for fun. And we get to enjoy Sam being so good at everything, and then like we walk away and we're like, I'm not wounded at all.
The confidence is the hotness for me. I'm sorry, Vic.
Oh, yeah.
Just taking off of your like something about him is so hot in this episode. Like when Detective Linda Blair says we got 1 million possible hits for like stuff that Dean did, and he just immediately possible hits, which means they're worthless. And I'm just like, that did something to me, and I don't know why. Like, because he just knows it.
It's the law student in him. Like,
yes, the little bits of law. Like the pre-law stuff is so well used in this because they're very realistic, I think, about like how much he's not like sat there actually like lawyering her, but it's like the bits of stuff that you would have picked up as a pre-law student. You know, it's like the kind of basic like criminology kind of stuff that most people might not know, but he does. But it's not like it's not taking it too far where it becomes unrealistic, if you know what I mean, because like he didn't get to law school, you know.
Right. And he knows how to talk to her. But it doesn't feel.
He's
like, this is a detective. This is a person who's trying to manipulate information out of me. So how can I kind of turn it around on her, which is so smart.
Yeah. I do also have another tiny note about this scene, which is a very me note, which is that Sam, when he picks up the cup of coffee,
I wrote this down.
The first thing he does is he sniffs it.
Yes.
It's just that, I think, is the very first incidence that we see of a specific thing where Sam has some sort of like sensory issue or reaction around food. I think after this, it's in Hollywood Babylon, and then obviously Folsom Prison Blows. Season 2 is where we start to see that kind of creeping in. But no, I literally made a gif of it today.
I'm posting it soon.
I didn't read
two
that.
scenes from this episode that I made gifs.
I like that interpretation. I didn't read that. I read it as a much more simplistic, I'm going to show you just what I think of your terrible coffee by giving it a good sniff.
Yeah.
Like he's just continuing his snark.
Going dark, like, does he think she's trying to poison him? Like, what?
I did also think that. And then I was like,
yes, yeah. I think in isolation, I would think that, but because it's a very consistent character trait of Sam's. Like I literally made like a little compilation of Sam and sensory issues, and over half of them are Sam picking up a bit of food and smelling it before he eats it, and usually pulling a face. So
yeah,
I definitely think that. I definitely think it can be read that way, especially because like you consider how he was raised, like fully on just the scarcity of, you know, like whatever is in a can, whatever is processed and has lots of preservatives so it doesn't go bad, because they don't have a refrigerator they can go to most of the time. They don't have a microwave. They just are able to like eat on the road. I'm sure he has had like tummy issues growing up, and as an adult he's maybe very sensitive to those things. I think it's a really interesting aspect to like zone in on, and I think that moment stood out to me too.
But yeah, I said I liked it so much I made a little gif of it, and there's another scene later on that I made a gif of as well, because it was something else that I was immediately taken by. So
we're gonna talk about that. I'm so excited. That's for the second episode. So they get into this cute little, like, they're not squabbling, but they're just like kind of like picking on each other and in one of the flashbacks, and Dean's like, "Are you ready to go, Scully?" And he goes, "You're Scully," and he goes, you're a redheaded woman." And I said, "You would both be lucky to be Gillian Anderson."
Exactly,
right?
That's what I said. I was like, that's a compliment. That's the highest compliment of all time.
Literally put some respect on her, or keep her name out of your mouth.
Yes,
Men.
You're a
but on the
redheaded
other
woman.
hand,
What?
I then also
Okay.
thought
I
also
actually
thought about
am.
the idea of like Sam and Dean watching X-Files together as kids.
I know.
Like, or like teenagers at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, come on.
Oh.
They must have done.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think. Like, oh, I love that idea.
No, for sure.
Oh, and I think that I would be remiss if I didn't point out that when we are in the sort of present tense scene, the colors have like a blue cast, and when we go back, we're much more like sepia toned. When
Yeah,
we
it's
go
like
back into the flashback.
the actual like tones of the show are in the flashback, because it's like that's what we know to be true. And then when he's telling the story, it's like, I really like that you noticed that, but like, of course, it's very on brand of you to point that out.
But I like the fact that it's noticeable, but it's subtle. It's not.
It is
like,
subtle. I had to go back and rewatch.
Some shows would be very on the nose with it. Like it would be a very hard difference in the color grading. I think. And,
yeah,
I think later season Supernatural would be.
Yeah, this
True.
was
You know, like
very under the radar. Like we want you to have this feeling, but we don't want you to know why you're having this feeling.
Yeah,
kind of
it
thing.
was. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so then we end up at the boys in insurance guy suits, which is very nice. So we continue with like just we're nailing it this episode with the wardrobe. And then like Sam gets to be very sweet with like the victim's wife, even though Dean's kind of like coming on too strong, which is kind of cute and funny between the two of them. But like also we get to see, and I feel like Dean kind of ruins it too. He's like, "Well, what did the ghost look like?" And she's like, "You need to get the hell out of my house. Why are you such a weirdo?" But it's fun for Sam. It's fun for Sam fans to get to kind of watch Sam be very, very like vulnerable and sweet with her.
He's so earnest.
This is my other bit that I said. This is another bit that I made a little gif of in this episode, because as we all know, I had canon Sam as autistic, and this scene to me, it already reads very much as Sam is an extremely empathetic person. He is naturally very empathetic, but on top of that, Sam is also extremely good at performing empathy.
Yeah,
he is very good at performing empathy at a level where it is extremely legible to other people, which is something certainly I do, because I'm very hyper empathetic, but I don't always naturally express that in a way that is legible to neurotypical people. What Sam is very good at doing is masking that and expressing that in that way. But the bit in this scene that really hits me personally on that front is when Dean does that bit where he kind of goes too far and then she's suddenly looking at him, right? And Sam turns to him and gives him the stink eye. Okay?
Yeah.
And then there is a tiny little, and it's such a good acting moment from Jared, there's this tiny little flicker where he turns back to the wife and suddenly the little forehead crinkle comes back on.
Yeah.
His like entire face shape changes, and it's like a fraction of a second as he's looking at her, and then he looks back at Dean, and like the mask just drops again, and he's annoyed at Dean, and it's like this tiny little flicker between the two, and I love it so much.
Jared is so good. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful little thing. But I think the thing is that a lot of people misread stuff like that with Sam as the idea that because sometimes Sam is good at performing empathy, that means that he's not actually empathetic, as in the performance is a lie, as opposed to the idea that the performance is like a way of making something legible to people.
That makes sense. I like that reading.
Sense. I like that.
I do think Jared has more muscles in his face than other people. Like the way that he's able to like micro like expression and then switch between the micro expressions.
I'm going to send you the gif of this moment actually that I made, because honestly, it doesn't matter how you read it, it is super interesting to watch the way his entire shape of his face changes. So I'll just put it in the
so
gif
good.
chat.
I would love that.
like a thing going for a while about like Jared slash Sam going through like
Face
all the
journey.
stages of grief or something in half
Yeah.
a second or something at one point.
Oh
Yeah, we
yeah.
definitely did have a conversation. Did you guys ever watch Kimmy Schmidt?
Okay,
Yes.
that didn't.
So Titus has that moment in the like he's in the library like have like watching something on on his computer or whatever, and someone comes over and points to the sign that says no face journeys in the library. And I always think when we talk in these terms about Jared, I'm like, he's having a face journey.
Face journey,
Yeah.
a face journey.
Yes,
His
absolutely. I think that's a really good way of putting it.
he is so earnest and he's so soft in this scene, and
Hmm.
his eyes are so like the only thing I could think of that was color and texture appropriate was like mossy.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good
that's
way of
very
putting it.
lovely.
I just love it. And like I love moss. I have moss growing in a little moss grower right next to me. That's how much I love moss.
Oh, I love
So
moss too.
I
I love that for
I
y'all.
just
I
Yeah, sorry,
probably
I
I've
just said
never
that.
thought about it.
moss.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah,
Hi,
so I sent the gift to
Moss.
the group chat if you do want to look. But yeah, it's just amazing to just watch like yeah, the way his face just
Oh,
flickers between two things.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna put this in the visuals for this episode, but I'm counting it's literally one, two, three, four, five different expressions, and it's like a second long.
Yeah.
Way
So
to go,
good.
Yeah, he's
Jared.
so good. He's
So
so
good.
good.
So we go from like sweet moment where he's very vulnerable and or like empathetic, very like tender. And the next like scene, he's like saying, I need to crack this password or whatever. And Dean's like, how long will that take? And he's like, 30 minutes. And so he starts like hacking, right? Am I
Well, what
right?
is he doing?
I thought he was
Cracking a password.
he's
No, no,
breaking
no, I
into the
know, but like what is
password.
he he's not just like trying passwords over and over. He's gotta
No, I
be
imagine not.
But that's what I think is so impressive
he's
is
got
that
like
he's
a
just like
command line
30
window
minutes.
open, like
He's just got a big brain. And so
and Dean's response isn't like, okay. It's
I'm bored. I have nothing to
boring.
do because
Oh,
I can't do this.
What am I
yeah.
supposed to do while you're cracking into the mainframe? Like,
I will say that this is where I'm going to make sure that I'm sharing the neurodivergent headcanon love. Hello and welcome to the stage, ADHD Dean. I love you forever, King.
I mean, for sure. Like, I think he's just like here to be. He's like, oh, this is boring. And then he's like, Sam's like, dude, and he goes, "You're right. I'm gonna go do something productive away from you." And so he leaves to
yeah.
go interview someone else. So I do like at this point in the story that Dean is still like he's like, I'm going to do what I'm good at, and while you're
Hmm.
doing the thing you're good at, and goodbye. Because I think later in the series, like he would have just cracked a beer and kicked his feet up,
Yeah.
and which
Well,
is
and he
fine.
recognizes that his presence isn't helpful to Sam. Like they
No.
work
Yes.
together.
It was actually a
They work together
detriment.
so well through this episode. Like the
Yeah.
story that they tell that matches like word for word.
Yes.
Like
I really
this is
wonder
like
about that.
peak.
Like,
If
is the
you
story
like
that
watching the brothers,
Hmm.
peak brothers this
Hmm.
episode.
yeah.
Hmm.
Sorry.
What I want to know is like, does the story match because it's just like WinSync, or
Yeah.
is it that like
I
they
wondered.
before they do they like go on a case and do they have like an agreed upon story? But before they set out, like do they have like things like that, or is it literally just like the
I
power of
also
Winchester brothering?
I also made a note about this, like how convincing Sam is about the story, and
Yeah.
then I wonder if they do have a story like this for every case. The Winchester's writer in me wants that to have been a thing they started when they were younger, so nobody got weirded out by two kids living alone in a motel room for however long.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think we have evidence one way or the other, but
No.
I want to believe.
Yeah.
Speaking of the X-Files, I do wonder, Dean being an ass,
Hmm.
is that
Just
part
like
of the story
is
filtered because Sam is the one telling it? Because we do have an episode where that
Quite
is the
possibly.
whole point of the episode,
is the
point in the
unreliable
humor.
narrator. Yeah.
Yeah. So is he kind of exaggerating? But I don't think so because it's never the point of this
Yeah.
episode. It's never made a
No.
point of
And
And
of
because
that part of the series too is to introduce the trickster to us.
Yeah.
and
Mm.
it wouldn't really play a role in regards to
And also the visual and like what we're hearing and seeing them do is supposed to be the real thing.
Yeah.
So I think that if that was the case, we'd only hear that in Sam's narration, and we don't. So
that's
Yeah.
so
that would
Yeah.
true,
be
yeah.
my
I
yeah.
did wonder because
Um
Dean was being such an ass, but he also has
yeah.
other stuff going on for
Yeah, and he
himself.
was just being
So,
kind of like a silly like dude. He was just, making weird
Yeah.
noises. And
I
when
thought he was
Sam was
kind of
like,
cute.
dude, Dean was like,
well,
you're right, I'm out of here. Like,
yeah. I mean, more for his behavior in front of the widow, but like
oh,
Uh,
no.
still,
He was fully, he's got a lot going on.
he's got some stuff going on.
Things. Well,
Yeah.
I do want to say the script is just so good. Like they don't even attempt shit like this in later seasons. Like it's so good. Like the story within a
mhm.
story, framing aspect, the narrative aspect, having someone like Linda Blair on, like the cute moment at the end where they kind of break the fourth wall. And Dean's like, I kind of feel like some pea soup. Like I was like,
Yeah.
Yes.
ah,
Yeah, that was so
She look
cute.
familiar to you?
so good. And I just like, I
So
really
good.
love stuff like that. And I think it's fun that they played with this kind of stuff in this episode because, like, even like the horror elements were just ramped the fuck up. Like, the widow sees a ghost. She immediately goes upstairs, locks her bedroom door. Girl, just leave. But then the haunted printer starts printing like the same shit over and over again by itself. Like, that is so scary. Like, it's just it's just really good. I really, really loved it top to bottom. Every element of this
It
episode.
has that
Yeah.
perfect mix of taking the horror aspect of itself seriously,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
but then being really faithful to what is sometimes a pretty comedic like set of brothers who are doing their thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're taking the right stuff
Yeah.
seriously
And
and
it's
it
Well,
kind of
shows.
like it is it interesting because it's playing with a lot of like different genre tropes as
yeah.
well. Like
Well,
because the
and
whole
we
thing of the like police interview and the unreliable narrator and flashbacks, like that is a
mhm.
trope, but
Yeah.
it's playing with it in interesting ways in the way in which it interacts with the horror and I also just think
Right.
it's just a really well done example of it as well.
Yeah, and it's fun
I
because
love
then
it.
the unreliable narrator is not Sam to us, it's Sam to Detective
Yes,
Ballard, and therefore we get to be in on it with him because we're like, we know what you're
exactly.
doing.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
know, but
We
she
know.
doesn't. We're on your side and we get to know what you really did. She doesn't get to know that. And I also just think it's so interesting because we talk so much about real world consequences, and this is like
Hmm.
the epitome of an episode about real world consequences.
Yes,
Yes.
and
we'll,
it's
we'll
not
get
all
another one of those.
neatly tied up at the end
Exactly. There's still issues that are going to arise from this that are still
into
coming
season
from
3.
season one. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I just love that. I mean, this has every single thing that I always want to see in an episode of Supernatural. It has it all. The only thing it doesn't have is a pretty girl fussing over Sam. That's the only thing it doesn't have.
He has a hot milf. So what more could we want?
That's true.
Well, and then,
For me, he doesn't ever get hurt.
yeah, you need him to have
So
like a
that's
bloody nose or something.
I need something.
Yeah. Well, my next note to Vic's point is that Sam is so convincing that in the next scene, Detective Ballard is like, evidence be damned. I'm believing this boy for no reason. I mean,
Well,
she is starting to see kind of things, but at the point where she was like, wait a second, and she wanted to go talk to Dean to see like his point of view, like it was kind of just Sam being earnest and being like, well,
Yeah.
you've got your job, I've got mine. And I was just like, oh my God, like,
where did you get those pictures?
I think we do need to make sure that we bring up we got to give Dean a little bit of love. The very iconic Dean line of the I'm Dean Winchester, I'm an Aquarius, I like long walks on the
oh,
beach and
Oh
do
frisky
yeah.
women.
not
Like
think for a second that I don't have an entire rant to go on about astrology. And you know what? I'm going to do that right now, actually.
go for it, Audrey.
Because Jesus Christ, this man is not an Aquarius. It's hilarious to me. And this is what I mean when I talk about like finding out what characters' birthdays are is not always going to really align with like the way they're written. If you want to like discuss astrology about characters, because you can do that with like Myers-Briggs and maybe Enneagram and stuff if you want to do typology stuff, but like he's like, I'm an Aquarius. And I was like, honey, no. So like, this is my rant about Aquarius because Aquarius are constantly going to be questioning everything. They walk to the beat of their own drum. Like they are not a fall in line and ask no questions kind of person. And that is Dean to a T. And on the other end of that, Dean is played like Jensen. Like Jensen just kind of plays himself in a lot of ways. And Jensen is a Pisces, and he's very much a Pisces man. Outside of that immediate snap judgment, I want to say the problematic ways that Dean is acted by Jensen. He takes on the traits of a Pisces man. And then he's very reactionary. And this is why I believe that Dean is an Aries rising, because I too am an Aries rising. And he reacts so fiery and so like instantaneously and immediately that like in my opinion, there are no major placements of Aquarius in his big three or maybe even in his big five. And whenever he said that, I was like, no. On the other hand, Sam is born in May. He's a Taurus. I actually do believe he is played as an earth sign. I could see like major Capricorn, and I could actually see Aquarius in like his maybe top five, especially maybe his Mercury. I'm sorry for all of you guys who do not understand astrology. It's not like I'm talking like gobbledygook. I keep hearing Vic laughing because she doesn't believe in it. But like I'm sitting here, I literally sat down and I wrote and I was like, actually, because that moment had me like I could not believe that they made this man an Aquarius.
I would just like to say, I'm not laughing because I don't believe a tiny bit, but mostly I'm laughing. It's like it's kind of like a joyous laugh because I really enjoy watching you get like so impassioned about it.
That's what it is.
Like,
That's what it is for sure.
It's all that Aries
anyway,
rising.
I get my like neurodivergency rants. You get your like astrology rants.
Sorry, Dean, you're not an Aquarius.
The way Dean growls, I think it's an anagram.
Just it was pretty jarring. It was very like, ooh.
His lawyer like comes in and is trying to tell him about, you know, his murder case, and he's just like doing word games. And the lawyer is like, what are you doing? I think it's an anagram. Like I can't growl like he does without like killing my voice, but I just can't get over it. Grr, grr, grr. All right. So Dean is making a space for Sam to escape by calling everyone to him and saying, I'm going to confess. This is where we get his iconic, I'm an Aquarius line. So like, I get that he's got to make a big production, but there is no reason for him to be honest about the supernatural in that. Like, this is on camera now, and if we're to believe the location tag, it's on camera at the Baltimore City Police Department. Like, this isn't even like a podunk town where they're going to overwrite this tape later. I mean, you could make an argument about Baltimore, but like he could have gotten the same effect of giving Sam time to escape without going into it's a ghost and it's this and it's that. And like narratively, I know it's so that he can drop Dana Schultz into the conversation so that Detective Linda Blair can be like, Dana Schultz, that's what I saw on my computer screen. Right. Something to this. But like it's the only quibble I have with this episode. Yeah. I think. Which is if he didn't have to drop, and he doesn't know he needs to drop that hint because he wasn't there when she got Dana Schultz. Like, so he has no reason to realize that this is going to make a connection for her. It's just the narrative having to draw that line. And so I'm just like, that's my narrative rant. It's just reckless. So it's just reckless.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like I kind of got that he knew they weren't going to believe him either way. Like he can tell them the truth to their face. They already think he's crazy. They already decided he's guilty. And so maybe he was just kind of being a dick about it, which is his right. But yeah, it was kind of interesting that he chose to do that.
It's on camera. That's the thing that I don't like about it. Like,
Yeah.
it's recorded, and he's already like, this is evidence that real world consequences are coming back. So, like, let's go
Yeah.
ahead and make more for ourselves that's actually preserved on film. Like, I just
Yeah.
don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, that's it.
I
That's it
did
for me.
I did think the Dana Schultz thing was really interesting that it was the sign casting a weird shadow of strange letters backwards
Mm.
into the space where the ghost ended up being like her body was buried. It's such an interesting touch. And it's not even like, oh, it's not even like she read the window. It's the way the sun would have to cast shadow inside. It just is cool. It's just cool. And
It's cool. I really liked that,
it
and I've
casts
liked it.
it onto the wall she is buried behind. It's just,
Yeah.
I thought it was cool.
So
That
she's
was a
like
cool touch
bathed
to me.
in those letters, like her
That's,
spirit is like bathed
that's
in
all
those
she can
letters.
see. It's so
It's all she
sad.
can see. It does bother me that they've accidentally, I think, reversed what should be shadow and what should be sunlight in that scene. But
We'll forgive
Fair.
but
them.
I like rewound it and I was like, wait a minute. The letters are like blocked out. They
Well,
should be black in the shadow.
now I'm gonna have to share um that screenshot as part of the visual so we can all look at that because I didn't even notice.
Well, and I've rewatched this series how many times, and I just noticed on this watching. So it's not a huge deal, but now I'm like, oh,
I mean,
I'm
I've watched it
mad
so
that I
many times
noticed
and
it.
I don't even remember nor big things that happen. So
I'm mad at myself for noticing because now every time I see this episode, I'll be like, those shadows are
That's
wrong.
the problem because we're watching it now, like with such like fine-grained detail to
like a
Yeah.
podcast.
magnifying glass.
Ugh.
Even so, I was just like, cool. Like
I still love the
I
conceit.
didn't
I
notice
love
it.
it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
I really love the look for the first motel in the yellow pages and then look for John Rockford.
Yes.
It's how we find each other. Like they are so good at this like Sam and Dean world building
We have to like
throughout.
meet back up. Yeah. And it's
Yeah, that's how we find each other when we're separated.
mhm.
Like it's you just put that in and instantly like you have a picture of the fact that there could be other things that they do that are similar to this. Like your mind starts populating that.
Yeah. Like
Like it's
Yes.
such
Poughkeepsie.
good world building.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
It's
Poughkeepsie,
so good.
which that's in
season 9,
one of the episodes with Victor, isn't it?
maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, similar things. I love it.
It's so smart. It's just and I think they lose that as we go. We lose a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's just so rewarding and like satisfying to watch these early episodes and be like, ah, it was so rich in so
Mm.
many ways. Like it was just
Yeah.
chocked full of great stuff. Which leads me to the next scene, which is where Dr. Ballard, not Doctor, Detective Ballard. I'm trying to give her more credentials because she was so good in this role. They're digging the wall up and like he's like, something just doesn't sit right with me. And detective is like, right, you're digging up a dead body. And he's like, no, that's normal. Something
Yes.
else doesn't sit right with me.
Something else is going on. I love that scene.
Mm.
Starting from when Detective Linda Blair is sort of quote unquote attacked by the ghost.
Yeah,
Because, I love a turn where we're led to believe this thing is the bad thing, and
yeah,
then we find
Yeah.
out it's not. When the
yeah.
ghost is just standing there, like looking
Reaching.
forlorn, reaching,
And
and
she
it's so
can't speak because
she can't speak.
her throat is slit. Like it's not, and then
Like
you
that,
realize she looks scary, but she is scared.
she's the scared one. And so,
Mhm.
in that moment, I don't know if it's just me, but in that moment, I just all of my well, I've seen it before, so I knew it ahead of time, but
Mhm.
all of the built up like dread and anticipation that I
Mhm.
have for this confrontation turns to like sympathy
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
empathy. I don't know which one is
So
which.
I
For
actually have
this like ghost character,
Yeah.
and I just go ahead.
I have a note on this, which is that this is actually like quite a light-hearted kind of episode. It doesn't tie into the overall narrative, and like it's not a heavy hitter in terms of like themes on the whole, but
Right.
this is a theme of season
Yes.
2 in particular, which is the playing in the grey areas of monstrosity.
Yes.
Because we've already had oh my god, what's her name? The vampire. Lenore. We've already had
Lenore.
Lenore. We've already had, I would say, even Tessa in the first episode, because
Yeah.
when we first see her we assume that she's going to be something bad, and then it turns out that she's the Reaper. And so it's and Tessa explicitly brings up the idea of like the permeability between human and monster when she talks to Dean, you know, as I said, like in the
Yeah.
first episode,
You can
about the fact
easily
that a human can
become
become
an
yeah.
angry spirit. Yeah,
And
you could
of
easily
course,
become
all of
that.
this is really obviously really tied to Sam's overarching plot in this, which is the like question of Sam and his place within the world and within that like grey area between human and monster.
Yeah.
So I love it. They just sprinkle that in so many episodes in season 2,
Yeah.
and it's such a lovely, like, I think Jess said the other day, like the narrative arc of season 2 is probably the most satisfying.
It's
And
so
I think there's
good.
more to say about that in Crossroad Blues as well. But like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really beautiful little touch that they bring in.
It's
I
so
agree.
beautiful.
And I
Yeah.
think it raises another question kind of comes up is if Dean were present, because Detective Ballard says like, well, what happens now? Like once they get rid of Pete, who is the guy that was also a detective who ended up being a dirty cop and killed this woman as a, like
Mm-hmm.
a heroin patsy for him, like essentially, um, like she's like, well, what happens now? You know, she's not here. She was here and now we killed Pete. Now she's gone. And Sam's like, well, it should be over because if she's not you know, a spirit who's after revenge, she was looking for justice and now she's gotten justice. And I think back to her body being uncovered. If Dean had been present, would he insisted they burn the body instead of maybe bringing the remains back to her family? You know, would he have been like, no, she was a ghost, like we have to be sure? You know, and I think on that because you're right, Vic, it does bring up the dichotomy the boys are at odds within, you know, like there it's a case by case basis or no, all of them must go. And so I think we also in this episode as Sam enjoyers get to also experience what it would be like if we just lived by Sam's philosophy. And that felt pretty good. Like I liked
Yeah.
that they switched, like you said, Elle, to empathy when they realized, oh, she looks scary, but it's because she was murdered and she wasn't trying to hurt me. She just startled me. And once they realized she wasn't the bad guy, she was just trying to warn them or whatever, or like an omen, which is, I
A
guess,
death omen.
yeah, just like she's just letting them know that's what's coming for them. They let her, they just trusted that she was done. Like she wasn't going to do
Yeah.
harm. And we know that Dean is not very likely to subscribe to that same point of view.
I don't think that Dean cognitively would have made the leap to Death Omen.
I don't think
just
he
don't
would
think he
have.
would have got there.
Yeah.
No.
But you know, we know that it would have gone differently in the end because she comes back and is the distraction that makes it possible for bad guy to get shot.
Yeah. And it's
If I'm
done by
remembering
Detective
correctly.
Ballard. Yes. It's
Yes.
done by Linda Blair's character.
Yeah.
And just another thing we get as Sam fans is that Dean is the one that needs to be saved and Sam gets to be part of saving him.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is a
that's
great
great.
episode.
This is such a good
It is.
episode.
It is. It's so good.
So, do you guys want to do last thoughts on the episode and then we can start rating it?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Awesome.
I did, yes. I did kind of want to talk about the Death Omen thing.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, go for it.
Because when I was thinking of a Death Omen as just a kind of ghost, I was wondering what she was tied to.
Mm-hmm.
Because ghosts are normally restricted.
Well, if she disappeared because she got justice, maybe it was the injustice that she was tied to.
Or I was thinking maybe Death Omens really are just something different.
Mhm.
because they didn't salt and burn her bones. And
True.
for all we know, she's gone. I mean, they didn't have
According to
any,
Sam, that's
yeah.
how it works.
And
Yeah.
we didn't narratively, if we were supposed to believe that she wasn't gone, we would have
Mhm.
had a little 3 second hee 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 right at the very end of her like not being gone or whatever. But so like maybe she doesn't have to be tied to something because she's a death omen.
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
can
perhaps
go
perhaps
wherever she
it's not
wants.
perhaps it's not her actual soul, because the idea is that spirits in supernatural, angry spirits, are corrupted souls, right?
Mhm.
Not corrupted in the same way as hell, but they're souls that haven't been able to go one place or the other, and that corrupts them. So I wonder whether or not it's perhaps her soul has been able to like move on, but it's some other part of her, like a reflection or an echo or something that's like, maybe that's what makes it a
Maybe.
different thing. I mean,
I kind
obviously
of
we
like
can't.
the idea that if you die and your main purpose is not to be angry, but to warn
Mhm.
other people that they are also in danger, because she
Mhm.
didn't die a long time ago. She died and she knows that other people are going to be in danger from this same person.
Yep.
So she dies and her spirit is like, look, sure, I'm mad, but primarily I need to warn other people.
Mhm.
Then she's not an angry spirit.
And she needs
She's
them to
just,
help her get justice. Like she's
yeah,
like, let me warn you, you're so close to the guy. Like
yes.
maybe you
And the
can help
necklace,
me. That freaked me out. The necklace being the same. That bitch bought her a necklace and then murdered her, buried her in that, and then got his next girl the same necklace. Oh,
that's messed up. And of course, that's narratively, that's why they have to be
oh.
involved because that's how she recognizes who the bad guy is. But
Yeah.
It's
freak,
also
man.
just a it's a
Ugh.
very real creep guy thing to do.
And it's
Yes.
like he knows. It's like that kind of Ted
Yeah.
Bundy-esque thing where he knows, like, here, I give you this earring. Not, and you don't know I took it from my last victim, but it's so creepy.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's creeper for real. Also, I just have to say, Sam beating the brick wall in with a pipe
Oh yeah.
with his hand in a cast.
One-handed,
Like,
yeah.
Yes, but did you
just get
notice
it.
he switches to his elbow at the end?
He
And
does. Don't.
I was like, my man, this is how you broke your wrist. I mean, I know technically that it was Jared who broke his wrist, but
Right.
in
Come on,
universe, I'm
dude.
like, Sam, this is how this happens.
Well, just
And
like
he's
Jensen plays Dean as a Pisces, Jared plays Sam as a consistently injured person.
oh, ah.
Oh.
Um. Also,
What
shouldn't they have it?
the first of many Jared injuries that go on to
Yes.
affect Sam.
I feel like and this is a rant I wanted to go on earlier. I feel like they should have like an entire network at this point of cops who and other professionals who they've had to
Mhm.
come clean with, who are just like dotted around the country that they could probably ask for help. And in fact, I can't believe that the hunter world doesn't have like an underground network of professionals who like mostly cater to
Yeah,
the hunter community and keep up like a
yeah.
private practice as a front. And it makes me even more mad that
You should
John
write it.
was mad that Sam didn't get to go into lawyering because he could have
He could have been
he
that
he
guy.
could have been that guy.
Well, because it's like the underground, like we watch shows like Better Call Saul. I do. I love Better Call Saul. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. And like Breaking Bad and stuff. And they have like medics who work behind the scenes, like, this is not above board. So I'm a vet. I will come help you with your gunshot wounds.
Yes.
And you kick back this or that. Like there's organized crime that does this. So I don't understand why it couldn't work with the hunters,
And they
like
need that.
in a different regard.
They
Yeah.
need
I mean, I
lawyers,
suppose
they need cops in good places, they
they
need
later on introduce
psychiatrists, they
they do
need
later on
doctors.
introduce Jodie and Donna, who are both hunters cops, hunters
Yes.
who are still
Yeah.
Thankfully.
functioning
But
as
that
cops.
takes us what,
Much
like eight
later. Yeah.
seasons?
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
not even a network.
Jodie's in
That's
season
just
5, but
Jodie's
yeah,
in season 5?
yeah, she's first introduced in season 5. Yeah, yeah. I have a feeling about this because a lot of people talk about Jodie as if she's like a late season side character, and I'm like, she's introduced in season 5.
I don't remember
I
that.
don't remember that. But
Okay.
regardless, it's still not like the network that I'm looking
No,
for.
no,
Like
And
as a part of the
technically,
world building.
it's at the end of what the original creator, it's the end of his story. So like,
Yeah.
I'm glad Jodie's there longer than I realized, but
Yeah.
it would have been at the end, so she wouldn't have been able to help with a network of any kind.
I'm
no, no, no.
just so mad that that they never were able to fully explore like Sam could have been a lawyer and a hunter thing. Like
Or
even
like
if
a
he was
lawyer who,
like,
with knowledge of hunting who can
yeah,
be a correspondent, like like some
I
sort
will
of,
get you out of that traffic ticket. Only by
yeah, a
traffic ticket, I
consultant.
mean
Like I can be
weird
a hunting
grave
consultant.
robbery.
Like I
Yeah.
yeah, oh my
Like,
God, yes. Okay,
yes.
I
Even if later he's like, I tried just being a lawyer, but the actual hunting is in my blood and I need to get back to hunting creatures, fine. But the
I
fact that
think
John was like, don't go to school, don't be a lawyer, you're leaving the family, when he would have been a huge asset to the family, just makes me so mad.
100%. I know.
I do think that part of the reason why possibly we don't really get that as a concept in the earlier seasons is that the earlier seasons I think lean much more heavily into the idea that hunting is bad for you.
It does.
I think
Yeah.
And
I
it
think the
is.
earlier seasons are very clear about the fact that hunting is not a good thing. Later seasons, they completely lose this and they start kind of playing into the idea that like, oh, hunting's all it's a good and a noble thing or whatever. And it's like early seasons understands that hunting is it's not good and it's not good for the people who do it. So I do think that's partly
But I think
why.
that's like why they need like doctors and nurses who might not be hunters, but are like aware and are points of contact, just like police officers. Like we're gonna get into Henriksen in season 3, I think,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
fucking love that guy. And so it could be him, and like Detective Ballard could be someone that they hit up because they're like, hey,
She never comes back, does she?
no, I mean
No.
she's literally Linda Blair. Like
I
she's
know,
a
I know,
very
I know.
special guest star. So, but what if they could have made her just like Missouri Mosley? Like she could have been another point of contact, and they have all of these different types of
Well, I mean, Missouri was
like
literally originally supposed to be the Bobby
Yes.
character,
right.
so
Don't get me
And I
started.
do love Bobby, but again, he is a hunter. I'm just saying, like, it would be so
yeah.
cool, like
There's
you were saying,
because
Elle, that there were different types of jobs and different types of careers that were
yeah,
not hunting necessarily,
because
but
if you
were
think
like
about it,
points of contact for that.
yeah, because other people are going to experience the supernatural and survive it.
And all
And
of them
so
can't be just like
they
regular,
can't
like
all
suburban moms.
well, and not all of them can go on to be hunters if they're like, cool, I know the supernatural exists and I want to help save people, but I'm like super not athletic. What can I do to help?
I'm going to go
Oh,
back to my like
I'm
job as a doctor, and maybe I can
and you
help
can always
hunters.
come here. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Like there
or
has to be people like that.
I can start like a spiritual practice at my hospital and make sure that I allow this to be a safe space for whatever they're called. What are they called again? The Reapers
Reapers?
to come through and just like make sure that all of these like it's just like a cool idea to think in terms of like how does the touch of supernatural experiences affect each of the characters they leave behind,
Hmm.
because we
Yes.
only have a few characters we go back to, so how did it affect like the Bloody Mary family, like how are
Hmm.
they doing now, and like what are they doing moving forward with the knowledge that they have, and I don't know, I just think it opens up a larger question, like of if we look back at the Winchester's wake and just any hunter, like there's a trail of people who now understand the supernatural is real, and why aren't there networks of people helping?
Um, I do just have a couple of things on that, which is that I would say that there are a few hints of the idea of people who do exist a little bit more on the fringes of hunter society, and they have
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more of a foot in like the real world and in the hunter world,
Mm-hmm.
not so much in, I guess, as maybe useful positions as what's Al saying, but for instance, Father Jim is very clearly still a
Mm.
practicing priest, and
Yeah.
he, at least at the point that we meet him, seems to be, I think, perhaps a priest first and a hunter second.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say that at this point, that Ellen and Joe are not active hunters. They're providing but they are part of the hunter community, and they're providing like
That's true.
a hunter adjacent part of that community. And the other point I wanted to make was that it may be, to be honest, that some of this stuff does exist, but we are primarily seeing hunting through the eyes of Sam and Dean.
Yeah.
And we've already established that Sam and Dean are extremely disconnected from the wider hunter community because John kept them disconnected. So I think there's room to like build that stuff outside of the Sam and Dean space, I think.
Yeah.
I get what you mean, like it could have been interesting to narratively like explicitly explore that, but I do think there's a lot of room for it because we just know that Sam and Dean are like at this point so disconnected from the
that
wider
would have been
community.
A really fun episode for them to be like, oh no, we can't tell that cop because blah blah blah, and then that cop's like,
Or
all right,
actually,
so I've seen your
even
rap
Ash,
sheets and I know that you're hunters because you've got a lot of weird stuff in graveyards going on. So here's what I'm going to tell you. There's a this and they're on the outside of town and we can't go in there because it's not legally,
but it could
viable.
be like Detective
but
Ballard turning her back and being like, you guys get on out of here. Yeah.
Yes. Or giving them like, you're not supposed to have this. Here are the photographs you need. Like, and then them being like, hold up, what? And they're like,
you're not the only hunters in the world, guys.
Did you guys think that everybody who encounters the supernatural just goes off and becomes a
forgets?
hunter? No, some of us have to go back to our regular jobs in order to live because we have families and stuff, but we still want to help out.
I think it's
like that
always bothered me that every hunter they meet has the exact same tragic origin story. Like no hunters just decide to.
Garth.
Apart from Garth, that's true. But like they all are just kind of like, yeah, here's where my tragic origin story began. Here's mine. And it's all just like, there has to be some people who like had that tragedy and didn't become a hunter or became a hunter for another reason, like Garth, for instance. Anyway,
Garth, I suppose
I don't
Charlie.
remember Garth's.
Because he met the Winchesters and he was impressed with them, right?
No. Garth was already a hunter, but he
became a werewolf later.
Thing. Yeah, no. Well, he became a hunter when he killed the tooth fairy because he used to be a dentist.
That is the silliest origin story. I love
it's just silly.
Oh my God.
And it's not so like cute. Necessarily like a really big messed up tragedy, which I do quite enjoy as like a lighter hearted thing. And I would also argue that Charlie doesn't become a hunter because of a tragic backstory. She literally just decides hunting kind of seems.
That's what I'm thinking. She's like, I met you guys and I can't stop thinking about.
But I also personally, as much as I love Charlie, that I don't particularly like because I just don't like this turn in later seasons towards the idea of hunting as like a morally
as fun.
Yeah, as fun.
I think Sam's like, interesting and don't satisfying. Do it.
I do think Sam is still like,
he's like,
we need your help right now, but you need to not do this in the future.
Because Sam continues to exist in the genre of the original show until the very end. I've seen some really good meta on this, is that like Sam is continuing to exist in like a horror, like, that smaller world horror kind of show.
Yeah.
And everybody else transitions into an action adventure show. But Sam's like does else remember? Yeah, but Sam is literally like trapped within it's a really interesting concept, and if you kind of think about his narrative like plot lines, it's so true.
I'm gonna watch later seasons with that in mind. That's very interesting.
No, if you do that, it improves Sam's storylines tenfold.
I just want to watch him as like occasionally being like, why is everybody else acting like this is a comedy?
I mean, it's like
just truly horrifying.
No, that literally happens because like they do all these bits where they have Lucifer. And when he comes back in later seasons, and the writers were like trying to write Lucifer as being kind of like buddy with everyone and like comic relief, and Jared literally was like, "I'm not doing this," and was just like acting traumatized in the background.
Oh my God! Okay, we have to get back to this episode. So let's go ahead.
All right.
Sorry for the tangent, but not
on the rating.
That's what y'all are here for. So let's do the rating. We're starting with our wardrobe descriptors: horrendous, adorable, genuinely good, or terrible but great.
I think
Let's
we already
start.
know.
We do already know. Let's start with Elle, and then
Uh,
no, we'll start with Vic, and then we'll go to Elle, and then I'll do it.
I think there is thus far never been a more genuinely good. Like just chef's kiss all the way through.
Mwah,
He's hot.
mwah.
The shirt is so flattering. Like that, we commented on it in Dead Man's Blood. Like it fits him.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
hangs off his body in a very flattering manner, and then
Mm-hmm.
also just like, yeah,
It's a,
the hair, the little flippies, beautiful.
yeah, chef's kiss. All right, Elle, what do you think?
agree.
Me too.
Hard agree.
Hard agree. There's no even reason to discuss further. I think we all are in agreement. The flippies across his little forehead, though he tries to push his hair back. The pattern
It's the
is
layers.
beautiful. Yeah, he has that great little insurance guy like suit at one point.
Yeah,
And I'm even gonna say like the wrist like cast is adorable. Like it just
It's so
adds
It's
cute.
something.
cute. It's just cute. I don't know why.
I also find the sling in season 10 unbearably cute,
Oh,
and
I can't wait.
also like the way
I'm
that
weak for
like
it.
Jared's lost a lot of like muscle weight, and you can see all Sam's clothes like hanging off him, like they
Oh,
look enormous. And then I feel really guilty because
sweet
I'm like,
baby.
I don't, maybe I shouldn't feel this because Jared was like in genuine pain, but
Yeah.
I look at him and I'm like, oh, this little broken bird, like.
He does look
Anyways.
like a sweet little broken little bird in that season.
He's
And
like
it works for
7
what he's
feet
going
tall.
through.
Yeah, he's like 7 feet tall, but
No.
his natural ability to just kind of combined with the sling and the
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's
muscle
still a
mass loss.
tiny baby, despite
He's
being a
just a
giant.
little baby.
He's just a baby. Okay, Vic, we're gonna do our Sam fan friendly scale on a scale from
Yeah.
1 to 5. We're gonna start with screen time. What did you give this episode for screen time?
I gave this a straight 5. I think it's fantastic. As I said, I think it's probably one of the most Sam-centric episodes that we've got.
Mhm.
And lots of big, beautiful brain, which we all know
Oh,
that
yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
Sam gets to have like adventures with a hot MILF. And and like the little Sam and Dean moments that are in there are
Yeah.
fantastic. Like
Yeah.
them starting the anagram at the same time, all the stuff where it's like,
Yes.
is it just like wincing? Is it like that they've got stuff planned? Like we've got kind of splatterings of both things. I love it. It's beautiful.
It's so good. Elle, what do you think?
I gave it a 4.999.
999. You got it. Cool.
For all of those reasons.
Yeah. It's so good. I gave it a 5 too for that. It's one of the best episodes,
Just
I
make
think.
mine a 5.
Okay. But 4.999 was so specific.
Because I have a thing against like a perfect score, but it really was a 5.
It really is. It's so good. So let's score enjoyment. Vic, what did you give it for enjoyment?
So I did initially give this a 5, and then I
Mhm.
have bumped it down, not because it was unenjoyable. Like it was literally like I had the biggest grin on my face the entire time. It was so fun. It
Yeah.
was so enjoyable. But for me, I just need a little bit more of something that makes my brain go bzz, 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 bzz. Like I need a little bit more of something that's like really meaty in
Yeah.
terms of like themes. Like there's a little bit of smattering of it, but
Yeah.
to really like get it for me, I need more of the themes. I need something that makes me want to write a bit of meta.
Yeah.
So I gave it, I think, ultimately a 4.8, but it's very
Okay.
close. It's so fun.
It's so good. Elle, what did you give it for enjoyment?
I forgot it was called enjoyment and wrote dopamine. Anyway,
Dopamine also, yes.
I give it a 4.6.
Okay.
For a lot of the same reasons that Vic did,
Mhm.
lowered from a 5 a little bit. I need like if he had had a scene with Detective Linda Blair about some like traumatic incident in his past or something. Like if we got to
You need
dig
to see
into
him
his
sad a little bit.
character, well, yeah, sad or angry or like
Right.
something genuinely emotional that dug in that was kind of new about him that we hadn't learned yet. If we had
Yeah.
learned something about him, then I would have gotten a bigger score. But he had so much being in charge and getting
Yeah.
it done and
Competent.
being
Yes.
competent and
That
confident
that feeds
and
more into the heart eyes for me. So that I think
That's
I
fair.
shoved that little bit over to bump my heart eyes.
Just numbers into the other column. It makes sense.
that's
Yeah.
right.
I gave it a 4.9. I'm kind of it was so perfect. It's just that one thing I said. I was like there wasn't some beautiful girl like fussing over him, which I would have loved. So that would have been the perfect score. If we got all the things we got plus that, I would have given it 5. But let's look at our last thing. It's Heart Eyes. So Vic, what did you give it for Heart Eyes?
Yeah, so Heart Eyes gets the perfect 5 for me. Like his heart, like big beautiful brain,
Hmm.
and
Oh
competent.
yeah.
Ugh, yeah, give it to me every day, all day. I
Hmm.
love it. Not like that. I am very ace.
She's like, by the way, just kidding. That's not what you heard.
I would like to say when I said not like that, it was because Elle would immediately collapse forward. I've just remembered it once again. This is not
Ella's
a
like
visual medium.
disappearing from the screen.
I want to make that my like notification tone now.
Now,
Give it to
every
me
time
all
Vic
day, every day.
sends us messages, that's what it's gonna say.
That's like when I did my season 11 wish list thing that I did
Yeah.
on voice note at like 2 a.m. and I had a bit where I was like, I just want Sam, and then I was like very flustered, was like, I don't mean for me, and then I was like, well, maybe a little bit.
He's very aesthetic.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay, Elle, what was your heart eye score?
4.9 because he's very
Mhm.
pretty and smart and squishy and
He just didn't
acting.
get hurt enough.
He doesn't get hurt enough.
True.
But the acting, Jared's acting and also Sam's acting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. He had to act as an actor. It's amazing.
yeah.
Actception. Okay, mine was a 4.8 for Heart Eyes. Again, my tippity top is coming later, but this was very close to a perfect score for Heart Eyes for me. I
Are you
just
waiting for Solace?
Yeah,
Is that
and
what
there's gonna
the
be
only thing
some
that's gonna get it?
no. It'll be like season
Oh,
4,
heart,
season
heart.
5 for sure. Like, but like, oh maybe. Dang. Now I have to really think about it.
Mm.
But like later on, like with a little bit longer hair and like a little bit more of like the he gets a little like beefier and like he has that complicated relationship with the demon blood and just like I have a lot of heart eyes for that. But
Yeah.
this was peak, like wonderful, like Sam episode. So my average for this episode was a 4.9 like even. Vic, yours was a 4.93333, and L, yours is a 4.833. So this is a stunning episode
I can't
Yes.
believe I got the lowest score for once.
for once, and yeah, but it's very high. So
I,
I have to say I'm so sorry to the fact that like obviously Jess and Christy should have been here. They should have been them doing it, whatever, and circumstances are beyond them. But I'm so glad I got to do this
yeah,
episode.
it's a good one. Alrighty, all ready to dive into Crossword Blues.
I am, yes. Although I have to say, Elle, I just saw some like grade A Sandwump on my dash, so I thought of you. It's from a season 13 episode that's like
All they
really
do
good,
is beat
like
his
a
ass in the
genuinely good
later
one.
seasons. They just beat his ass. Man.
that's
He
true.
literally he literally dies. He gets his throat torn out by a vampire. It's good. But that's not
Spoilers.
even that's not the bit that's the good bit.
I don't like it.
Oh wow.
Better things happen after that. If you want Samwump, better stuff happens after
I
that.
never
What
want
what's
that.
this? What's that episode called?
That's not my
Called
thing.
Beat the Devil. Watch it, Elle. It's so good.
Okay.
I'm gonna watch the later seasons eventually because I do want to see the evolution of like Jack's relationship and like all the weird stuff that happens with like
It's
Mary and John
honestly
returning.
Jack and Sam is like one of the top reasons to watch
Yeah,
later
I'm
season
definitely
stuff.
gonna do it. I probably will be after, it'll be in between seasons of this
Yeah.
podcast, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would
so,
say though, you
oh,
can
go
get a
ahead.
lot of it just by looking at GIFs on Tumblr.
That is so true. And it might be
People
the
have
best
GIFs
part.
every single Jack and Sam scene that is in existence, I
That's so
think. So
All right, so Crossroad Blues, we finally get to learn about demons. Finally, demon deals. That's what we learn about. We already know about demons, but y'all know what I mean. And so I think it's really interesting that they go 8 episodes into the season where we start a season with a demon deal, and it's extremely important part of their lore and their story. And they don't actually discuss what it really is in explicit terms for 8 episodes. I thought that was really interesting. I think it like speaks to how much the boys are struggling and avoiding like thinking about it because it's so awful. So, crossword, crossword, Crossroad Blues, um, basically begins, and there are people who are dying. Like I think an architect like jumps off of their beautiful architect, beautiful piece of architecture that they built, like a house that they built. And then the stories continue where like, oh yeah, he just overnight became a success 10 years ago and now he's dead. And this happens again to like a doctor in the story. And they're starting to realize that these people are making demon deals and they're getting 10 years of success, and then they sell their soul and they die and they get dragged to hell by hellhounds, which is very upsetting. And I think one of the guys that they realize this is happening to is a man who did this to save his wife from cancer, which throws a wrench into the very black and white way that Dean wants to kind of deal with this, where it's like, oh, well, they chose this and yeah, exactly. And they do this, that no one holds a gun to their head about it. And then it comes down to, well, he did this because he loves his wife. And Dean just lectures this man. Eventually, Sam pulls him away, and Dean goes to actually talk to a demon. Has a very interesting. I love the way that the scene is written between Dean and the demon girly, and eventually traps her and kind of works it out to where I'm not going to let you go unless you free this man. And so she does, and they save him. And that's kind of how the story ends. And the episode ends with what is essentially an awesome preview of the rest of the season, which I forgot they did on television. And that's kind of it. Like we're gonna dive into like the stuff that really matters with this episode, but that's kind of the plot.
Is that the only soon we ever get? I think it is.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Watch. I feel like we
get soons.
But it's usually not this early. It's usually in the mid-season finale.
Yeah.
And they're like, here's what's coming later. But
maybe it's certainly the first of that we've ever gotten.
Oh, definitely, because
and this is also showing us like 2 episodes because it's showing Croatoan and Hunted.
Yeah, they're like,
I'm wondering.
More coming.
It's
getting.
I'm wondering if it was right before a long break,
like Christmas or Thanksgiving, maybe.
And they were like, "Stay tuned. We promise."
Well, because if they start in September and this is the 8th episode, that means 8 weeks. That's the end of October. So maybe they were going to take a break or something after Thanksgiving. So they were like, check the next 2 episodes for sure.
But I mean, just in terms of like the plot, the plot of Supernatural, like Croatoan and what's then revealed in Hunted are such like pivotal things. So I can see that even if there wasn't going to be a break, that they would want to like build those up.
Yeah, like don't miss these because they're very important.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into Crossroad Blues. So what's really cute at the beginning to me was the boys like kind of looking Dean's record up on the computer, and then Dean being like, so you're not even in there as like an accessory? And Sam's like, well, I'm sure they just haven't posted it yet. And it's cute, like Dean calls him, okay, you innocent, harmless young man, you. Like, very cute stuff.
I think that like Sam, like serial killer special interest boy, did a tiny little bit want to be listed as a possible serial killer.
Or like an accessory, yeah. Well, and Dean's just out there on the internet, and he's just sitting at like a pub or whatever, like a cafe with the laptop, just being like, yeah, let's look up my wanted poster. I'm like, brother, are you afraid not to get made? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. That's funny.
Could we talk a little bit about the Robert Johnson stuff?
Yes, because that's what the whole thing is about. It's rooted in that story.
And there's like, I think, interesting like historical context to think about, and also like the fact that Supernatural is playing with this legend, which is kind of like it's interesting in terms of like the dynamics of how the legend came to be.
Hmm.
I won't talk about it for too long, but I just
Oh no, go for it.
I'm a big like blues person, and I know a lot about the history of it. Something I did actually want to note straight off the bat is that it's interesting in this episode that we actually only see one person be mauled by a hellhound, and explicitly Robert Johnson is not. I
Yes.
don't think that this was for sensitivity reasons, but I'm extremely glad that they did not put in the visual of a black man being mauled by dogs,
Jesus, can you even imagine?
especially a
It's
black man in the
horrific.
30s.
Yeah, it was
So,
very
um,
uncomfortable to me. I know that the myth is, or the legend is like
mm,
is a thing.
yeah,
Um I just think also it's like to me a little bit ancient aliens of us to think, you know what I mean? We're like, oh, like
yeah.
how did
Well,
people
this
of
is.
color do this? It must be
It
supernatural.
must have been a
I was
double
going to get
deal.
into this because
Hmm.
there's an interesting thing with that. So, but
Okay,
the other
yeah,
thing I was
tell
going to
us.
say was that I do, as I said, I don't think that they thought about this in terms of sensitivity, but I'm very glad that that happened. I
Right.
suspect the reason why Robert Johnson wasn't mauled and he just seemed to die of unknown causes
Hmm.
is that that is genuinely what happened.
Hmm.
He died and there was no recorded um reason for death on the death
Hmm.
certificate. It's been postulated that he was poisoned with strychnine. Um,
Oof.
so yeah, so he may well have been murdered, but it's unknown. So I suspect that's why they didn't, because he is a historical person who does
Yeah.
have a historical death. So
I mean,
we definitely know he
yeah,
wasn't
but they
found
also,
mauled to death.
well, okay, but they also H. Holmes, they like messed his whole story up, and I was really
Well,
annoyed with that. So like we know that they will like switch
yeah.
an actual historical like story to fit the narrative of the show if they
That's
want to.
true. But yeah, so I was going to say, in terms of like the Devil at the Crossroads legend, so Robert
Yeah.
Johnson is not actually the first blues musician to whom the Devil at the Crossroads mythology is connected.
Hmm.
So the story was originally connected with another Delta blues musician who was called Tommy Johnson, unrelated, but another musician. And Tommy Johnson, as far as we know, he started that myth explicitly about himself.
Wow.
Yeah. So it and there's a bit of a thing that there seems to be within the blues community, that this is a legend that is kind of passed around that people pick up and use on themselves. But
To kind of
interestingly,
like turn themselves into a legend. Like, how could it be this
yeah,
good? It's because
exactly.
yeah, that's cool.
But interestingly, with Robert Johnson, the mythology around the Crossroads deal with
Hmm.
him doesn't seem to be appended to him
Hmm.
until he's rediscovered by white people
Yeah.
quite a few years after his death. So it's interesting because probably in Johnson's case, it is a case of a little bit of this kind of like exoticizing or like, yeah, this kind of like putting something on this person and being like because his musical career only lasted 7 months.
Mm.
He's fascinating. Like he's a really genuinely interesting figure. Like if you don't know anything about him, go look him up. He's very interesting.
Dean was
So
very
he really was
disappointed in
this.
Sam for not knowing.
Yes. Well, I'm with
Yeah.
Dean on this one.
Yeah, it's very
But yeah,
cute
so
that he's like, oh, I know everything.
he was like this flash in the pan of
Hmm.
like something that happened. But yeah, so the legend doesn't really get appended to him until later on. But the person who really perpetuates it is another blues musician called Son House.
Hmm.
So again, there's like this little bit of interaction and tension between is it something that's being put on him by white people or not? Because Son
Hmm.
House actually perpetuates this legend about him, and he says about the fact that he met Johnson like before he became great, and then suddenly he became like amazing, and then like so he
Whoa.
kind of plays into it and plays it up. And there's also just some really interesting debate in kind of musicology studies and Black history studies
Yeah.
around where this idea of the devil at the crossroads stuff being associated with the blues comes from. Um, so there have been suggestions that it's come from an African deity called Lebaga, That's probably not pronounced correctly. But he's a kind of like trickster type deity, and that has become kind of conflated in with then Christian mythology later on. And it's also quite integral to the story that the devil is explicitly referred to as being a large black man in the story.
Interesting. My goodness.
Yeah,
I didn't know
again,
any of
it's like,
this.
yeah, anyway, I just thought it was worth bringing up as context because it's genuinely interesting, and I think like I love the way that Supernatural uses it and brings it in, but I think like it's worth acknowledging the fact that there's complexity around that story to begin with. So yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to take up too much of the episode, but also I thought this is a very Dean-centric episode, so we may be a bit shorter on time.
Oh no, yeah. That's such interesting context. And I don't know those things. I felt very uneasy about it, so I'm glad to hear more about what you know about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Supernatural is not known for being like racially sensitive or sensitive in any capacity. So it's good to know like more of what it's based around.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we get started and the first, I want to say victim, but the first person who dies is an architect. And so the boys go in and they pretend to be Architectural Digest journalists. And it's very interesting. And I think this speaks to like how Vicky like the way they draw themes throughout this season. They speak to his brother and they're saying, yeah, we're gonna do like an homage to him and that we're gonna do like a honor piece to him. And his brother's kind of pissed because he's like, oh yeah, like he did this really selfish thing and he leaves all this behind to his family after he dies that we have to deal with, but he's the one who gets honored in like the magazine. And I was like, oh, okay. Like this is how Dean is feeling about John. And very soon this is what Sam is gonna be made to feel because of what Dean chooses to do. So we already start kind of drawing those parallels. I also said cute Sam hair slicked back, but still flicking back over his forehead. Just a little is very important to me.
Yes. I did really like there's a particular like cute snarky Sam moment that I really like, which is where he kind of laughs at Dean about not knowing what a MySpace is.
Yes.
Which number one dates the show.
Oh yeah.
But the thing about Supernatural that always like it upsets me is because it's so long-lived. Supernatural encompasses both the existence of MySpace and TikTok.
Yep.
Which is deeply upsetting, but also because earlier seasons feel so like out of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the whole point is that they're supposed to give you that nostalgic feel. That to me, the idea of Sam and Dean knowing what TikTok is just so unbelievably wrong.
Oh my God. I stopped watching before TikTok, so I don't know that part of the show.
I don't know that part. All I know is
wild. It's wild.
I am Dean's age in the show. And I knew about MySpace.
Yes.
I know he's not exactly super online, but he does know enough to ask if it's a porn site.
Like, of course he does. I think Dean is online enough to be able to access porn. I think that's about the extent of it.
But he's never heard of MySpace. I just found that really funny.
Great delight in like gently teasing old men in his life who don't understand technology. Like I always think about Sam's line about like the man could barely operate a toaster about John in the first season. and he does it to Dean as well. Like Dean, I think when it comes to tech, Sam just puts in the like old man category.
Yeah, I mean Dean still really loves cassette tapes. Like he won't even update the Impala and then is mad when he comes back, I think in season 8. And like God forbid
Sam has like an MP3
has like an
player
app well, and it's just an adapter. He doesn't even replace it. He just gets a little thing that he can like, adapt it so he can listen to his tunes. But
yeah, well.
But anyways,
too much. Too much.
Not to get us off track. Also,
my other question is: did Sam have a MySpace at Stanford?
100%.
And if so, what was his? Yeah, and what was his really annoying autoplay song when you got onto his page? These are the questions that we need to know.
What if it was Silent Lucidity, and that's why it plays during heart?
Yeah. Also, to the Denzians of Tumblr, enough like fake Sam Instagram profiles, Sam TikTok profiles. We need historical accuracy. Give me a fake Sam MySpace profile
Please.
from Stanford era, please and thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Because he would have been going to school with, wouldn't he have been going to school with Zuck? Where did Zuck go?
Probably Stanford, I'd imagine.
Where I think,
'Cause
wait,
it's-
hold on. Was it Harvard? Where was he? Where was
Oh, I
Zuckerberg
don't
in
know.
college? Because we all watched The Social Network, right?
I've not watched it,
didn't.
but yeah.
What's wrong with y'all guys? Social Network is so good. It's where I
I've heard
fell
it's
in love with Andrew Garfield, and we should all love him a little bit, even if it shouldn't be Spider-Man that you know him from. It should be Social Network. But let me look it up. I'm probably dead wrong. Yeah,
I mean,
think
it could be
probably.
Stanford because it's like Silicon Valley, right? Like,
I think that's why I got it confused. Zuckerberg College. Where did you go, brother?
Harvard.
It was Harvard. Yeah, that makes more sense
okay.
because they were all trying to get into different fraternity.
That's what I was
that were
gonna. That's what I was
important.
gonna ask. Is this when Facebook would have been around at this point, right? But
Yeah,
was
but it only would
was
have been a
college
couple years old.
exclusive.
Actually,
And
Yeah,
it was
it
and
came.
it would have
exclusive
still
to
been
.edu addresses.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
so
So Sam could theoretically have had a Facebook as well.
it's not even theoretical because I was in college at the time. Zuck is just a year older than me. So he was a sophomore when I was a freshman and he had just created Facebook. And we had to email him directly on Facebook and say, hey, can you give my school, my tiny school, because it was a Baptist university, a network so that we can join. And he did it. So like Sam was he's a senior in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So he was literally just like a year and a half older than Zuck. I think he would have had a Facebook. Like they would
Yeah,
Stanford
yeah.
for sure would have had one. So that's so crazy. I've never thought of it in terms like that. Like I've thought of it in terms of Legally Blonde, but not of Social Network. I've already tried to give you guys homework. I was like, y'all need to watch. The Social Network is now one. What was the other thing I was like, y'all have to watch this? I need to go back and listen and edit because I was gonna have to go, oh, Bottoms. Hello. If you're queer at all, you need to watch Bottoms, okay?
I've heard it's very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Anyways, let's get back on track because I've taken us to an entirely different planet at this point.
All right.
Okay, so
Can we
there's
talk about? Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
Do you
no,
have
no,
an
go
idea?
for it. I was just gonna say there's so much spell work and lore behind like calling the demon and like burying the thing and having a picture. And in the future, they just like stop doing that. And I guess they put all demons on speed dial and skip it.
I mean,
I think they do. You just don't see
they
it
had to
happen
do
on
it, but
screen.
when they dug up the Crossroads
Mhm.
thing, they found the oldest one, and they didn't
Yeah.
find stuff from any of the intervening. Although the people who were recent, most of them did not have to summon because the demon just stayed.
Yeah.
But we
Yes, I
and
like
we
that
did find
because-
his picture, didn't we?
yes.
Of the last guy.
I
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I also did like the fact that they had the thing about like the demon hanging around and collecting more deals. Number one, I just love that as like an idea, but also they do actually bring that back because Crowley does it in a season 8 episode as well, where they have Crowley just like turn up at this ranch and he then just like hangs out for a week just like
I
making
love
deals.
Crowley.
Making deals.
So,
He's a
yeah.
great character.
I
But
love
it's a good little touch. I like
Mhm.
it.
when someone's demon deal is coming due.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of area effect that the approaching doom has
Yes.
on the world around it, that
Mhm.
you can hear the dogs from their perspective anyway.
Yeah.
And the people, without knowing, are just appearing all distorted and terrible
The person
and
starts
terrifying.
hallucinating and-
It's so
the-
scary.
The area effect of the presence that the dogs have on the world around them is way scarier than actually just showing
Yes,
double
absolutely.
dogs.
I think making
Hellhounds.
them like invisible was the best
Yeah.
idea that they ever had, and it was budgetary, but it was a very good idea.
It was a great, yeah, it worked out.
It makes it feel
well.
so much bigger, like because the effect
Yes.
is big. It's like a huge footprint of evil,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can't identify the source.
And you can't escape from it.
Yeah.
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 Also, it almost to me gives it the feeling of do you know when one of the signs that someone's having a heart attack is that they get this like impending sense of doom that it just feels like inescapable, and it feels
Oh,
very like that to me, like this kind of
yeah.
like literal like
Weight
inescapable like
on their
weight of
chests.
doom.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Ooh.
I just like that as a like a
Yeah. Oh, I
concept.
never thought about that, but that's so true. And then like you can't like they can't suss out, is this happening for real? Am I having a medical emergency? Am I having a psychotic break? And
Hmm.
eventually what takes them, to me, because I've struggled with mental health and I've struggled with like my anxiety, it feels very like that when I'm watching the scenes. And what is
Yeah.
always very scary is it's like, but am I imagining it? And then it's when you find out you're not, it's too late. And it's also like you wish you hadn't because you're being, you're being killed. You're being dragged to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just gonna say the way that Vic described it, like I would I guess I'll never know if I'm having a heart attack because that impending sense of doom is
Yes,
just a
exactly.
normal panic
Genuinely what
attack for
I
me.
feel every time I've done first aid training on this. I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
know how I would know.
I have no idea how I will ever know if I'm about to die because I often feel like I'm about to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's mental illness for you.
Yeah. Well, and women are also, we're not taught how it, will always
How it
like
presents. Yeah.
presents in us. And we're
Yeah, it's very
always
different in
taught too
women.
to like downplay our symptoms because we're always told we're hysterical. So
Like I will never
beware,
forget the
ladies.
story of the woman who was having symptoms of a heart attack, but they were female symptoms
Hmm.
of a heart attack.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
she was like, it's probably nothing. I don't want to wake anyone up and go to the hospital. I will go to bed, and if it's still a problem tomorrow,
Girl,
I will go in. And she did not survive the night.
that's
Yeah. Well,
awful.
actually,
It's terrible.
not to go on too much of a tangent, but they I actually a plotline that I thought they did so well in Crazy
Mhm.
Ex-Girlfriend
Oh,
was when Paula had a heart attack, and they did play that out. Like she
yeah.
literally walked around for like 2 days having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And kept being like, "Oh, I think it's just the menopause. I'll be fine. I'll keep pushing through, and etc." And they actually did a really good job of like
Yeah.
showing on screen how like the symptoms present differently, and but without it being like too heavy hand. Anyway,
That
Yeah.
show
I
is
love Crazy
so
Ex-Girlfriend.
so underrated. That's going in the links.
Yes.
You guys, if you've never watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I know that it seems like
Homework.
adult glee,
Yes.
like you're watching like a
Oh no.
musical. All of the music is original. It's fucking great. So much of it is written by very incredibly talented Broadway caliber writers, and it is performed in the same way.
And
And it's
It's
once
so
you've
so good.
smart.
watched it, you will have a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend song for any incidents in your life. Like
Everything.
literally, I'm like, I don't need reaction means. I have Crazy Ex-Girlfriend songs.
Yeah.
Like
There's
Yeah.
even a
I
song called
literally send them
Heavy
to people so
Boobs.
often.
Heavy
Yes,
boobs.
my theme song. Thank you very much.
I was walking
Mine is,
around for months saying, ask me how I'm doing. Hey guys, ask me how I'm doing.
how are you doing?
I'm getting by. I'm getting by.
Mine is You Ruined Everything, You Stupid Bitch. That's my favorite one.
Yes.
Oh my God.
You
I mean,
stupid, stupid bitch. Like, I love it. It's so good.
I literally performed. Well, I've performed two Crazy Ex-Girlfriend songs in drag. I've done
It's so good.
Diagnosis,
Oh,
and made it
diagnosis.
about getting an autism
Diagnosis.
diagnosis. And I've also performed "Tell Me I'm Okay, Patrick," because the little like monologue that she has in the middle where she completely breaks down and
Oh,
talks about and says about like, is there an instruction manual that I missed out on as a child? Like, tell me where it is.
oh,
I like as a neurodivergent person, I've never related to anything more than that. Anyway, watch Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
it's
Let's get
so good.
Anyway,
I just think that this is funny because you can tell this is a Dean-centric episode mostly because of
yeah.
how distracted
we're
we've been.
avoiding talking about the episode.
Well, I will bring us back to a place of Sam. I hated his red shirt in the beginning, but then when he put the khaki jacket on over it, I liked it. So it was redeemed.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was redeemed.
Yeah. So let's talk about Dean having like zero empathy for people making deals because it's hilarious because of he's going to be like Demon Deal McGee pretty soon. And within a season and a half, these dogs are going to be coming after him.
I mean,
Well, he's obviously reacting to the notion that John made a deal for his life.
Right. But it's not
So I get
unconnected.
it.
It's not unconnected to like this is what I wrote that was like a positive thing, but it's actually really fucked up. I said this just puts in a stark contrast how much Dean loves Sam because he was only slightly tempted to bring his dad back for like 10 whole years. And for Sam, he gave it all up for like 1 year and didn't even think about it. Like to me, if you're gonna get into that like I love a toxic like love story dynamic, that is like that is the moment.
Oh, absolutely.
That is it.
That is he loves
Also,
Sam so much.
This is why he only gets 1 year, right? Because she's the same demon who makes the deal with him, and I think it's him having done this to her in this episode that then has her say, right, well, you're only getting the 1 year.
But he's so desperate. She's
but
like,
he does
it. Okay,
he does it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's what I mean.
I think that's a really good. I hadn't put that together before, that he was like, maybe for 10 years with that. You know what? Actually, no.
He knows
1 year
that
with
John
Sam.
is in hell and Sam is just dead. Like he's probably in heaven. And like when we get to that, I know, Vic, we're gonna have conversations to that parallel like season 5 of Buffy and like bringing her back. Because we don't know, like Sam could have been in heaven, like totally just chilling, being like in like the dark side of the moon, like having 7th grade dinner or whatever, and he gets ripped out of it. Wasn't. And then like on the other hand, he could have like Dean could have saved John from torture, and he was like, no. And I just think that's funny. Like he literally was just like literally cannot not like give up everything to have Sam back. And of course it's much more complicated than that, but like I don't know, that's a fun comparison.
Also, I was also going to say, like, as I brought up earlier, like what Jess said about like how satisfying the narrative arc of like season 2 is, like the way that they kind of bring in the information about stuff that is going to then just lead us up to then Dean's ultimate decision in those final episodes. Like the fact that we get the concept of demon deals is introduced in the first episode, and then we get Dean's devastation at the idea that his dad may have made a deal for him, which is introduced a little bit in Everybody Loves a Clown.
And
they're not explicitly sure that it was a demon deal at that point, but he knows that that's probably what happened.
Well, because he also says things that are dead should stay dead, and
exactly. So we've already got that brought in, and then of course this episode introduces the concept of the crossroads and the actual like selling your soul aspect, and then it intensifies Dean's like repulsion and contempt for the idea of like making a demon deal, and explicitly introduces the concept of the idea that he is able to conceptualize the idea that there is a selfishness in what these people are in what is done in terms of selling your soul for somebody else, even if you think you're saving them. But what's interesting to me is that I think that although the guy who does it in this episode, that Dean is kind of correct to clock that, I think that when Dean does it to Sam, it is actually, there is more selfishness involved. In some ways, because his wife was dying of cancer.
Right.
Sam was already dead. In some ways, to me, that's a little different.
He's at rest, or quote unquote, like he's not suffering. You're not preventing suffering. Actually bringing John back would have prevented his suffering. And he chose not to. I think you're absolutely right.
The parallel that you can then draw, So I posted a little photo set, and I'm sure we'll link it in the notes or whatever on Tumblr earlier. So what I had never really clocked before rewatching this, because I've been rewatching season 9 quite recently, is how close the wording is between what Dean says here and then what they write for Sam in The Purge, when Sam explicitly says
that's
about
a season 9 episode.
Yes. When during the Gadriel stuff, when Sam explicitly says, "You did not save me for me. You did it for you because you couldn't face the thought of being alone."
And he didn't care what Sam was going through.
Considered that it was an explicit callback to this, but having compared the wording today, I think it probably was. I think it was an intentional callback. But of course, what Dean does in season 9 is significantly worse than
Oh,
what
it's
this man is doing here.
horrific.
And the
Jesus.
selfishness of that is I would say indisputable.
Well,
as
and at
opposed to
the end of
the
the
whole gray area.
day, the man made a choice for himself that benefited his
Mhm.
wife. But
Mhm.
like in season 9, obviously Dean makes a choice for Sam that
Yeah.
benefits him and
Yeah.
goes against Sam's bodily autonomy. Like it's a
Yeah.
whole, we will get
It goes against
Yeah.
Sam's explicit wishes,
explicit
in
wishes. You're
fact.
right, 100%.
But
And
I do think that this episode is when once you get the events of the final episode of the season,
mhm.
like as it said, like this narrative arc is so satisfying because this sets up just how you can see how utterly devastated and angry and what John has done by selling his soul for Dean
Yeah.
has affected Dean so deeply, and
It's changed who he is.
he's cognizant of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes the tragedy and how awful an act it is for Dean to do the same thing to Sam at the end so much
Worse.
more, like
So
it
much
brings it into
worse.
sharp relief. Yeah, because we know for a fact that Dean understands
Oh,
what this does to a person.
he spends the entire season feeling like this, and then he knowingly does it to Sam. And I
Yes.
just can't, it is so insane the kind of conversations that the fandom will have to try to ignore that and
I think
demonize Sam
portions.
for things that he chooses to do later
Part-
in like season 8, for instance.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that I think partly it's because the writing often does not get Sam's interiority very well. Um, uh, and also the fact that season 3 ended up being so truncated. My understanding is that they were going to deal a little bit more explicitly with what effect this had on Sam, as opposed to what they end up doing, which is that really what we focus on is Sam's um worry for Dean and like trying to save Dean. He gets very caught up in that, and I actually think that's a very Sam thing. So I don't necessarily like begrudge it, but I think it would have been interesting if we had been able to dive a little bit more into what this actually, like, be able to see that reflection of what it did to Dean in Sam in the same way.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I do
Yeah.
think we keep speaking on how satisfying season 2 is. It's because you can tell there was a writer's room and they talked about the entire season arc and they didn't just wing it. And that's why it's so good. And that's why I think they are taking care to be like, here's some previews for upcoming episodes because they matter. And that's what we lose in the later seasons when
Well,
they literally admit that they don't know where they're going. They'll see where they're headed and they do not plan together as a writer's room.
They wrote as far as the mid-season finale, and then they would go on break, and then they would write the second half
And then
of the
decide
season.
where the fuck they're going. That is absolutely abhorrent. Like I do a better job as a teacher planning my fucking curriculum year to year than they do planning a television series. Are you fucking kidding me? It makes me
I do better as a fan fiction writer.
Well, yeah,
plotting my plots.
I will say though that it at the time that they started doing that, I think that was becoming more of a trend in
it's so
in
lazy
TV writing in general.
It's despicable. I'm so mad about it. I really like all the tangents we've gone on. I feel like they're all just as important as talking about the episode for some reason.
Absolutely.
I'm scrolling through to see if there's like anything. I have like talked not at all about this episode because
I was going to say
everything has been mentioned. There's just not that much.
It's interesting because I think this is probably one of the few like Dean-centric Sarah episodes, actually. Like, cause she does usually get given like, or I don't know if she like requested. She was like, "Give them to me, give me the Sam episodes."
Yeah,
but
I would.
She does usually write the Sam heavy ones.
Yeah, I have some stuff to talk about just some cute moments, but I really want to talk through this scene with Dean and the demon girly because I do think it's so well written. So I do like the moment where, so Dean kind of like. Sparta kicks the door open to enter the house. They knock and no one's answering, and so he just kicks it in. And then they go upstairs and there's a double door and he's about to just Kill Bill ass kick these double doors in, and Sam just runs in front of him and catches his leg and is like, dude, what are you doing?
Dude.
Like,
And
let's
then
just
just opens
open
the
the
door.
door. And they're like, oh, why didn't I thought that was really cute. I thought it was cute because I know like Dean is on a mission and like he's in an emotional crisis because I think like the more they know about demon deals, the more distraught he gets, the more like you can tell he's becoming a bit more and more unhinged. And so we get more moments where Sam is like, look, I don't like where your head's at. I know this is about dad. Like, I know that you're thinking this, I'm thinking this. Like, and I love moments like that. But I like that they threw a little levity in where like Dean's on a mission, he's going to kick down doors. And then Sam's like, man, just open it. Like,
Yeah.
and so we get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, in that scene, Dean is being kind of an ass to Evan, the guy.
Mhm.
And even though they don't know why Evan has sold his soul, I feel like Sam has an idea that something is off, that
Yeah.
something is going on with this. Because he keeps like kind of watching Evan and being like, Dean, no, seriously, Dean.
Mhm.
Dean, calm the fuck down, Dean. Like he just has this sense. And then all of that happens, and then Dean's whole deal comes out that it's about Dean and Dad. I wrote, he doesn't care about this dude, but he's sure making Evan feel like shit moments before he's about to be torn apart for the
Yeah.
sake of his wife,
And you can
because he's
tell like
so still angry at John.
well, and he didn't get to
I think
say
it's
this to John. He wants
Yeah,
yeah,
to say it to John, and this poor
yeah,
guy is just like the avatar for it.
yes,
yeah,
exactly,
absolutely.
exactly.
Like, what were
But
you
I
saying? I'm
do think
sorry.
it's also worth bearing in mind that it is about what John's done to him in terms of like leaving him with this guilt because of him having given his life for Dean. But
Hmm.
it also we've got to bear in mind that Dean is also still at this point holding on to the secret about Sam that his dad has told him. And I think that's the other layer to this is that that's also eating away at him at the same time. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's making him so volatile.
Mm.
I think if it wasn't like the combination of the two things and the fact that that was like the last thing that his dad said to him and so it's like I think it's the combination that's making him act the way that he is.
Yeah, he's struggling so much. And the scene between the demon girly and Dean, I don't think they gave her a name. Did she ever say her name? I don't think she
No,
did.
I don't think so. No.
But it keeps the audience guessing where Dean's head is. Did he make a mistake by like
Mm-hmm.
inviting her in the car and then he didn't hide the demon like seal or whatever, the devil's trap? And then is he being manipulated by her? Or is he actually a step ahead? And I think like the writing plays really well with walking those lines, and then Jensen does a really good job of playing it to make us wonder as much as the conversation makes us wonder. And I just think it's very well done. And I think
Mm-hmm.
another important moment that I made note of is that the boys at the end, like after, he has this long convo with with the demon, and she kind of says these horrible things to him because she's pissed. She's like, I can't believe like you did this to me, and now that you've let me free, I need to leave you with something that's going to sit in your brain. And she says like you would have made the deal if you had thought really hard about where he's actually at. Like he's in hell and it's worse than you can imagine. And she disappears. And he has to go back and tell Sam this. And they're sitting in the car. And I think for the first time, they're actually having to conceptualize hell. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so awful for them because they're not just conceptualizing it as like a place they know now exists, but that their father is there. And it makes Dean unable to live with himself. He
Yeah,
cannot, every second he's alive, he wishes he was dead. But on top of that, he can't even kill himself. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't kill yourself. Suicide's bad. But like, he couldn't even escape that because what really the problem is that his father is in hell. So he
yeah,
could in the suffering, even if he escaped this mortal coil, he
Mm-hmm.
escapes
it
this
wouldn't help.
plane,
Yeah,
it wouldn't change a thing. And I don't think I would be able to deal with that either. Like what a
yeah,
horrific,
No.
that is torture.
yeah.
That is
Yeah.
torture.
Dean is
I
like fully ready to give up, and it's one of those instances where Dean is like, no, I'm done. And Sam has to be the one who's like, okay,
Hmm. And then,
it's okay. There's hope. We can
mhm.
do this.
Yeah.
Like he has to like drag Dean along.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if the next thing I wrote was, and it makes it that much worse that later Dean does the same thing to Sam, knowing exactly how horrific it feels, just like Vic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
exactly.
pointed out,
Yeah.
the betrayal is much worse because he knows what it feels like to know the
Yeah.
person you love so much is there. And
And
I
it
also,
makes
oh,
the
go ahead.
tragedy worse for the viewer as well.
Yeah.
That's why
Awful.
this season is so narratively satisfying, because they've
Hmm.
spelt this out for us, but
Yeah.
without, I think, without knocking it so heavily on the head that you see it coming.
Yes.
That like
You couldn't even
you do, but you
conceptualize.
don't.
Like you would never think Dean would do this himself because of how bad he is feeling
Yes.
being on the other side. So when he
Mm-hmm.
does decide to do it, you're like,
Whoa, 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 whoa.
what are we?
Yeah.
Oh, and like it also drives home how desperate he's going to be at the end of the season. He knows what it feels like. But this
Yeah.
is the question I posed at the end of the episode. If Dean had made the deal that he may have had a better, would he have had a better life than he is about to in the next 10 seasons? Like, if he had made the deal, brought his father back, they would have had 10 seasons of this show, which they do and more than that. Would
Well,
his
it would
life
have
have
put the
honestly been better?
it
And
would have put the apocalypse off for 10 years.
yeah, I mean, I wonder
Because
if,
there
Because the
would have
first
been the righteous
seal
man in hell.
because
Yeah.
the first seal is the righteous man in hell.
oof,
Mm-hmm.
I see. Then that makes me wonder, would that demon have been in trouble, like for blocking that plan? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I was actually wrote a little bit about why she's so focused on John, because when he's like, I'll make a deal for Evan, she's like, I can't break a contract like that.
Hmm.
But she's willing to break
I
John's
I
deal with the yellow-eyed demon.
Yeah.
I genuinely wonder if she did it because she knew that Dean wouldn't. I think I wonder if it was perhaps more about like literally messing with Dean,
Yeah.
and to then be able to like
Mm.
further needle him by revealing that
She
his
gets
father
to be
is
the one,
explicitly in hell.
yeah, to tell him how
Yeah,
bad it
I
is.
something that I did also think was an interesting bit of like, I guess, kind of like continuity of how demons work, or like how demons are structured or whatever, is that she says that she's not the one who made the deal.
Hmm.
But the implication in that is interesting to me, because it kind of suggests to me that Azazel didn't either, which fits
Yeah, he says
with.
he didn't he say I can't do it, but I know someone who can.
Well, he said that he couldn't physically resurrect John,
Oh, okay.
so that's why he needed the Reaper. But I think he also could not make the deal himself, which
Mm,
fits with what we know of Crossroads demons. That Crossroads demons are the only ones who can take souls.
right.
Hmm.
So I think that's interesting. I think it does imply that John did like bring in a Crossroads demon to make the actual kind of like to seal the actual deal.
Or yellow
But
or Azazel did.
Mm.
And probably easier for him to call up a demon and be like, "Hey, can you get here? I
sorry,
got
that's
a
what I
deal
meant.
for you."
Azazel, yeah.
Mm.
The
Oh,
I
the
okay,
mean,
yeah.
yellow eyes
John
did it,
is a
yeah.
demon in my heart, but I got what you mean. All right, do we want to do final thoughts on Crossroads Blues?
um,
I think I was just going to say, um, oh, the conversation, this is just like a 2-minute conversation between Evan and
Mhm.
his wife,
Mhm.
where he knows he's not going to
mm,
survive her getting back from her trip.
Yeah.
When somebody is saying goodbye like that to another person who doesn't know that this is the last goodbye, I it hurts something
Yeah. It's
inside
very
me.
upsetting.
It's so upsetting. And so I was just like sitting here going, these aren't main characters. I don't know who they are. I should have no feelings about this, but I had so many big feelings about this.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know who the actor is who played Evan, but I feel like he did a really good job.
he
he did
did.
definitely.
I agree.
Um, I was going to say this is a fantastically written episode, as I would say pretty much all of Sarah's episodes are.
Yeah.
But there was one moment where I feel like when Sam and Dean had their first conversation at the Crossroads, where they kind of like did the exposition dump about Crossroads demons and how they work, was that felt a little bit heavy-handed. It was the only moment that like really kind of jolted me a little bit out of the episode because it was a
Hmm.
little bit yeah, a little bit heavy-handed in
Yeah,
terms of the
like
exposition.
exposition-y, yeah.
Yeah, but I did love the use of the yarrow in particular.
Mhm.
That again is a really
Yes.
nice touch, like use of flowers in like spell work and ritual, and particularly something like yarrow, which does actually have like deep historical connections to that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. I really like that as a touch. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I liked
But
that,
yeah, I
yeah.
think overall it's like obviously we've not had as much to talk about because we're a sound centric podcast,
Hmm.
but it is a really good episode.
I agree.
And it's a really like pivotal episode, and in some ways it's pivotal for Sam because
Oh yeah.
it does go on to impact Sam. It's just
Hmm.
yeah, it's obviously through a very Dean lens,
Yeah,
but
obviously for that reason, but also this is the episode where we get maybe not explicit evidence, but our first evidence that your Crossroads demon has to
yes.
make a deal with you with a smoocheroo and is someone that you desire. And I'm just saying, in the future, when we see Sam's Crossroads demon,
Uh-huh.
that will be
Yes.
something.
Yeah,
That's
Yes.
all.
Thank you,
that
Sarah Gamble.
will
We love
be
you.
something. Yes, we love you. All right, are we ready to do our judgments?
I think so.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so wardrobe was kind of inconsequential to me in this one, but again, our
Hmm.
descriptors are horrendous, adorable, genuinely good, or terrible but great. Let's start with Vic. What do you think?
I went with adorable.
Yeah.
There was nothing egregious, but it unfortunately it had the, the unfortunate thing of coming straight after the usual suspects,
Yeah.
where he looked so good.
So
So
good the
I
whole
think
time.
he could have been like shirtless and it wouldn't have compared to me. Like
Yeah.
that's all
Elle,
I'm
what do you
saying.
think?
I also went with adorable.
Yeah.
Nothing good, nothing bad,
Yeah, it's kind of a
just
neutral
normal.
descriptor. I should just have like a meh one.
Meh.
Like I didn't even know. No, I went with adorable too. I think like what pulled the adorable up for me, because it was at first I hated that shirt, but his hair is getting so much better by the episode, and that jacket kind of saved
Hmm.
it for me. So I was like, "Oh, that's cute." Let's go to our Sam fan friendly scale. Screen time on a scale from 1 to 5. Vic, what did you give our screen time for this episode?
I gave this a 2.5, and I'm honestly wondering if that's a little bit too high. No, as I said, not because it's a bad episode, but it is very Dean centric.
Yeah, it's very,
I think I might
yeah.
give it a 2. I think I might give it a
Okay,
2.
you got
Yeah.
it. Elle, what about you?
I did like a 3.5
Hmm.
um because the screen time that we did have was full of Sam like
Yeah.
calming Dean down, which
It
I
was
liked.
good.
Mm.
It was good screen time. It just wasn't a lot.
It wasn't a lot, but I liked what we got.
I agree. I gave it a 3.5 exactly. Yeah, it was good. But again, like that's just barely above average because he was kind of there half the time, but there was some good stuff, but yeah. Okay, so for enjoyment, Vic, what did you put? How did you enjoy this episode?
I went with a 2.5. Again, like he's there,
Hmm.
and he does some good Sam-ing. He
Hmm.
does some good empathy. He does some good soothing of Dean. But like, there's nothing for me to get my teeth
Yeah.
into. Nothing gets their teeth into him, you know.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
that's what you need. My goodness. Elle, what did you
I'm right
give
there
it?
with you, Al. I do
Right?
like Sam
She
being
needs
mum.
him to be thrown into a wall.
At least, at least. I went with like a 3.7.
Okay.
Um, because he did know something was off with Evan and he
Oh,
knew something was off with Dean and the whole line, I don't like where your head's at. Like
yeah,
he's very like
he's intuitive.
it like intuitive, but also like forthright with Dean in a way that
Mhm.
he doesn't often get to be like later. So
Yeah. Yeah,
bumps
I
the enjoyment up a little bit for me.
yeah, I gave it a 3.2. For that reason, like I was gonna give it a 3, but like he does have some good moments that are really he's really so I did enjoy that. Overall, I didn't enjoy the episode as much. I always have a hard time when like I get my feelings hurt, and that always happens when like when Dean is being exceptionally hypocritical, I have a hard time with it. And he's not being a hypocrite yet, but it's like pre-hypocritical.
It's
Foreshadowing.
it's
Foreshadowing
hypocritical
hypocritical.
only
Yeah.
because we've seen it before.
We
And
know
then
where he's gonna
explicitly
go.
being able to draw that parallel with season 9, like then it just adds to it, doesn't
Oh
it?
yeah, you doing that gift set or that like graphic parallel. I was just like, dang, like it showed up on my
Yeah.
feed yesterday and I was like
I literally never made that connection before. Yeah.
it's
So
it's very apt, it's very exact. We are gonna link
yeah.
that for sure in the links.
It's the
For
exact wording
resources.
of the like I'd do it again as well that really got
Mm.
me.
Oh
Like
my God,
particularly
it's
as that
awful.
line from the yeah, again, like that line from Dean
Mhm.
is 10 times worse in context
Yeah.
than the character in this episode.
This
So
is stuff we will talk full chest on the Patreon about how we really feel about season 9. When we if we ever get to it on the main feed, we'll try to be nicer and more like like constructively critical, like as like a
I
piece of
cannot
art.
promise that, Audrey.
I know I will try. I know that Elle will try. But I will talk so much shit behind a paywall about how pissed I am about season 9. Okay. So let's do heart eyes. So Vic, how did you feel? How were your heart eyes for this episode?
I've given this another 2.5.
Fair.
Yeah.
The
It's
fluffy hair
much
can
the same
only
as the
do so
previous episode.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Elle, what about you?
I just gave it a 3.
Womp womp. I
Wah,
give it a 3
wah.
too. I give it a 3 also.
I honestly think, even with how Dean centric it is, if it had come after
Mhm.
any other episode, we might have given it a little bit more. But like coming after it can't compete.
No way. Yeah. And I didn't
Mm.
even think in terms of that. I was just like, huh, that was okay. Like I was grateful for it being easier to take notes over, but like that shouldn't be how it is. You know what I mean? So,
I was
so
Yeah,
grateful for it taking
I
45 minutes
we
to do
somehow
because I only
yes, I
paused
was
like
gonna
3 times.
say
yeah.
yeah, that's what I said. It literally took me 3 times as long to watch The Usual Suspects, so I've taken so many more notes. But
Mhm.
yeah, I will say we do somehow seem to have managed to have like paired up a lot of like episodes where there's one where you take a ton of notes and then one where it's like, oh, we don't need to take as many. And I don't think
Yeah.
it's necessarily been like I don't think it's necessarily been like by design, but it's so
Yeah.
far it's
It's
worked out
worked
quite well for us.
out.
It's a happy accident.
So my
Yeah.
average for this episode was a 3.23. Vic, yours was a 2.3. And then Elle, yours was a 3.4. So we have rated this episode and it was average.
In
Ah,
terms of Sam, anyway.
Yeah,
in
in
terms
terms
of
of
Sam.
Sam friendliness, you're right. Guys, that's the end of episode 4 of season 2 of this podcast. Thank you, ladies, for being on with me. And next time
A
we
pleasure.
hang, we're doing Croatoan, y'all.
I am
Woo!
so unbelievably excited for
I
Croatoan.
I'm
can't
excited.
wait.
I'm excited.
All right. Bye, you guys.
Bye.